Glad to have you back here on the Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast. I'm going to take you on a journey on this episode, expanding on my very first episode where spoke to you about why I started Steward Your Business. And this goes back to, I'm going to take you back to the late summer, early fall of 2022. And the theme of this podcast episode is really going to be about letting go and starting anew. And I want to share this story with you. Hopefully, it will encourage you and let you know that I live what I coach, what I share about. It's super important to me that you're this far into the podcast, which I so very much appreciate you listening and supporting the podcast, getting the word out. I couldn't do it, getting the word out and helping without you, the listener, sharing and engaging with it. So I really appreciate your feedback. And I appreciate critical feedback as well. So don't be shy. Please leave your comments and thoughts about the podcast. I welcome them, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen and invest in yourself, number one, and sharing that with me. So, with that said, I want to lead the discussion today with you and prompt you with this understanding of we all have to let go at times in our life, right? There are things we need to let go to become the person that we're to be. Otherwise, we are holding ourselves back. And I've done that for years. And it's one of the things that I work on in my program and mindset and understanding who you are to lead yourself well. But I want to walk you through my own personal story, and hopefully it'll encourage you and help you recognize what you might be holding on to and what do you need to stop holding on to so that you can start doing something else? In my experience in life, in reading through history, this is a common experience. And in order to achieve greatness, in order to improve, even if you're in a great place, it requires letting go in order to become this next version of yourself. And so, this idea is applies to personal, professional, aspects. And so I'm going to walk you through and hope you enjoy this little trip down memory lane for me. But for those of you that didn't understand or didn't know how I came to be, where did Steward Your Business come from? Again, I started that in episode one about what was the genesis of Steward Your Business. But I'm going to dive a little deeper here with you on this episode. And for me, it came about in August of 2022, where I was working with a great company, great team, but there was a change in leadership, and um, I wasn't ready to let go, but it was time, and things needed to shift, and so that there was a parting of the ways there. And honestly, in my heart of hearts, when I look back, I would say probably end of 2020, I felt a pressing on my heart of, hey, David, you should explore new options, new ways of doing things. And I interpreted that as keep doing that within the business that I was working in at the time. And reality was, I probably should have let go a little sooner, but nonetheless, I can always learn from all these different circumstances, and so can you. And so there's a lot of a challenge uh, when we're looking, and I start internally, right? Looking at the fear of the unknown. What is my current identity, and what would be my new identity? And so there was a lot that I wrestled with, and this journey of letting go for me was a series of different things. So that position ended. Um, I unfortunately, although unfortunately at the same time, was dealing with my dad, who was very ill. He was dealing with brain cancer, and thankfully, I was able to pivot and be with him and with my sisters, and make the most of our time together over the course of a few more months together. Thankfully, my dad uh, knows God, I believe has a relationship with God and is in heaven. I really believe that one day I'll get to see him again. That's my hope and my faith. But he had passed away in early part of November 2022. And so for me, there was a lot of fear, worry, doubt, anxiousness, right? I wasn't having another job lined up. It was a discovery place for me. Um, I knew that it wasn't right to just go get a job. That was clear for me in my own personal journey. And as I went into October 2022, there was an event called WarriorCon 4, which you guys have followed me. You know, I'm trained with Wake Up Warrior as a certified trainer. And that's something I include in my company. And so there was a call to action there in late October 2022. And here I am looking at no job. I have savings, thankfully, and so I plan well and have things in place. However, here's this opportunity to go all in with Wake Up Warrior, become a certified trainer. I had just a few years earlier investing, a few $100s in myself was kind of a lot. And to the point where here I am on the precipice of investing the most I've ever invested in myself, over $30,000 for a year program, because the reality was I had to go all in. Could I pay partial? Absolutely. I could have paid monthly, but I felt like I needed to go all in and I needed to start new. So this is the leaving behind what I knew to go to the unknown. Um, do you think I was scared or challenged or, yes, 100%. To go all in and to take the savings and to say, kind of burn the ships, if you will, was critical to my journey. For me personally, I went all in. I made the choice, thankfully, with my wife and the support of my family, to go all in and to start anew and go this direction to start Steward Your Business. I would not be here today. This podcast would not be here if I hadn't made that decision. And so starting anew was challenging. And this was right on the precipice of my dad's passing. So you're going to be faced with a lot of ups and downs and challenges. And what prepared me for this was that I had been in Wake Up Warrior, among other things, doing stacking, using the tools day in, day out, week after week, month after month. So that helped me process this, prepare me for this. If I hadn't done that work, it certainly would have been even more difficult. But here's, when I look internally, and I want you to consider this, look at yourself, look internally. What's holding you back? What are the fears? What are the doubts? What are the worries, right? These are all the internal things that prevent you from stopping one thing and starting another because you got it. You're like, oh, well, I don't want to risk it. I'm in this mode, but I'm telling you, really think long and hard about it. Because if you stay this, you may be cementing your current identity, your current self concept, right? Tied to these past roles and ways of being. And that doesn't suit you anymore. You've grown, you've become a new person. And so you're like trying to put on these old clothes. I mean, if you ever tried, I mean, I'm older now, but when you outgrew clothes, right? You had to get new clothes. You had to try them on. It was a new fashions, a new ways of being again. And so if you're not careful about this, you'll stay stuck. And that's one thing that I work with clients on is getting unstuck. We start with mindfulness, being aware, and using, like I said, the stack tool, the resource to help you get clearer on yourself on what is most meaningful for you. I'm just Peace Index is another one that I use. There's lots of different tools there. Again, I can't sell up all these on the podcast. I want to give you guys some ideas and some thoughts. And please, if any of this resonates with you, reach out to me because I'm happy to have a conversation with you to see if it's a good fit, if there's these would be helpful for you. and do a deeper dive. That's what I'm committed in one-on-one coaching and helping each individual just as I do myself, right? So here's this journey of deciding that I'm going to leave one way of being. I've been an environmental consultant for over 20 years. I've always worked for somebody else. Yes, I did have a couple, I would say, hobby businesses, and still do. Uh, and happy to share you guys those another time. But there's a challenge again, letting go and looking at where do you want to go. And I believe we all have an understanding of this. We just oftentimes don't give ourselves the time that's needed to kind of pull back the layers. We have lots of stories with lots of emotions tied up in there. And sometimes it's quote unquote easier, although it's not in the long run, but it's easier to kind of push them off or have an excuse or be busy and doing something else. We have a lot of external challenges as well. So there may be resistance from our family or friends or colleagues. Well, how could you do that? I don't. They don't understand this, right? Especially for those of you that are being called to step in an entrepreneurial role. This was new for me. Uh, I wasn't always an entrepreneur. My dad was a firefighter. My mom was a teacher. All great things. And needed, but I felt I was called to step out and to do things in my own way and trust that God's for me. I'm going to work through this process. But that's a lot. There's a lot of external pressures too here. So the biggest one I find is the internal, but it may be for you these external challenges, right? Um, I have a colleague that been talking with for the last year or so, and she made the jump earlier this year. But for quite a while, as we were talking, she was at a very high level corporate level job, and it was extremely um, stressful. And so there was financial implications that had to be considered in planning for an uncertainty. So those were considerations that she had to do with her husband and figure out, okay, what would this look like for me to make this move? However, I will say to you, uh, um, having seen this with other coaches and trainers, we have a tendency to let that linger longer than it needs to. It's like a band-aid, right? Sometimes we just need to rip that off quicker and move on it and commit. If we try to, I've seen this with a lot of coaches, and even myself. I had another DJ business for a while, and it was a distraction to a degree. It was a drag on me moving to where I really needed to be. And so think about this. If you know in your heart of hearts, you need to stop something that you're doing. It may have been good, it may have served you well at some point, but this is time to end this so that I can start something new, right? The sooner that you can do that, the better, in my opinion. That you need to make that decision, and that's something that I help in my program and in helping you move and make decisions and act on the revelation that you've been given through the stacking and going through conversations. That once you clear on that movement, make a pivot, don't delay. But that being said, there are a lot of external pressures, and if we're not cons you know, if we get consumed by that, that may prevent us from starting the new thing. I want you just to be aware. I'm not saying just, completely blow it up but each person's different. But think about navigating the logistics of a career shift or ending perhaps maybe even a long-term relationship, or at least distancing yourself and putting some boundaries like, hey, this needs to end because I need to start this. This is a healthier way of being, right? There's a lot of different things. We have addictions. You know, it could be in addictions or just, habits, right? Things that we need to stop doing that don't serve us anymore. Maybe it's, could be part of your body, right? Food that you take, sugar, caffeine, alcohol. There could be things and you're like, that's not serving me anymore. And so I need to end that. Now, the challenges is we built habits and routines around some of these things. And it's going to be hard initially to break that. You're basically creating a new groove in the record, a new groove in your brain, and a new way of being. And that's what's going to happen, right? Is if you're going on two paths and you see a path that you know and well, your tendency is to go to the path that you know well and your experience because it's low. Your brain, and I've talked about this in past episodes, your brain's hijacking you a bit. We talked about going into the unknown. So this is related to going into the unknown, right? Letting go and starting anew. Um, so my personal story, getting back to my personal story, right? There was that financial implication that I talked about earlier that I had to consider. It was changing my identity. I've been an environmental consultant for 25, almost 25 years here. Um, and that was a big deal. Like, who am I to coach? Who am I to consult in this way? Right. That was one of the things that held me back in my mindset. That was more internal, but external too. Like, how would people view me? Right. How would I make money? How is this all going to work out? These were all barriers that I had to face, had to overcome. And thankfully, this has been a joy. It's been work, let me tell you. I'm not going to lie to you. It's been challenging, but it's much more rewarding, much more fulfilling. That's what I want to encourage you on this podcast so that you can be the most intelligent leader, leading yourselves well so that you can encourage and show others. Lead by design, lead and show others how you show up in life. So, for me, you guys have heard me. I have my spiritual background as a Christian and knowing God and pursuing God. I believe that there's a spiritual component to this too. And think about your morally called or you're ethically called to live out your life. I want to live out my life to the highest and best good to love God and love other people. That's really one of my driving forces in this life. And think about this. If you're not acting and using your talents and abilities and preventing yourself from reaching those people because you're like, well, I don't know. I don't have everything figured out. I get it. I get it. But I've been there. Here was my journey of starting. And what I started was I reached out to one client, which I still get to work with today, which I'm so grateful for. And we figured out and navigated something and we had to pivot over months and over the years of how that all relationship worked. It wasn't always perfect, but that's part of the journey. And then I got another client, and then I got another client, and later in 2023, I got another client. And so this built over time because I made a decision to take steps to begin a new chapter in my life. I created goals. I set these through that. This is through the Wake Up Warrior work that I do. And it's not just the stacking, it's actually then creating a plan each month and each year that I look at and how I'm going to get there. That helped me get into position, leaving what I knew and what I was previously to start something new. This is so important here, and this is why I go on social media, you guys. Hopefully, you're following along. If look up David Carr, look up Intelligent Human Leadership, look up Steward Your Business. Uh, Find me on all the Facebook, Instagram, all those things, LinkedIn. I share my life because I want you to see how I make choices and how I pivot and how I'm going after what is most important to me, so that I have clarity and certainty in making the move toward stopping one thing and starting the other. That is really important. Do you have clarity and certainty on where you're going and what you're doing? If you don't, let's discover that together. We could do a deeper dive. Again, I can't solve that all here on the podcast, but I can give you guys tools and resources. I can send you the Warrior app you can look at. I can send you the peace assessment. uh, and assessment that you can take and get clarity on your purpose, your place, what's going on in your life, right? The people you're surrounding yourself with. I want to make sure that you have victory in your life, that you can make the move from the known to the unknown that we've talked about before. You're making that leap. You're letting go of where you're at, and you're starting something new. What do you want to start? What could that vision be? You might not be in a terribly bad place. And this is a beautiful place too. You want to go, as Jim Collins says, from good to great, right? We want to get you in a place of even greater impact. Uh, and that it was important for me too, knowing who I was, how I could help other people, why I started Steward Your Business, right? And so when you're challenged with this, you can look at these different aspects. Start, it may be internal for you, again, where we're talking about these barriers of, like I said, the fear of the unknown. Go back, check out that podcast that I talked about last time, but maybe who your identity is. Who am I becoming? What does that look like? Right? I'm not sure, but I know I want to become this better version of myself. Becoming is really part of my lifestyle, who I am. It's why I show up and share with you guys, so that you can see the transition, the transformation within who I am, and so that you can also have that. And additionally, beyond that internal, we look at those external pressures. And again, that might be different for you. You may have, like I said, financial considerations. You may have your family considerations or friends. Um, Hopefully, I've talked about this also too in a previous episode, power of association. Those around you are encouraging you to step up and to become that better version of yourself. Hope they are doing the same thing, right? You are all rising together. If you're being pulled down by others, or they're trying to keep you in a place of a certain position, and this is what I talked with like a colleague before. I mentioned saying she was in a high level corporate position and they kind of kept her there, and so she wasn't able to expand and really become who she could really be and affect others positively. So when we're stuck, not knowing where to go next and not knowing what we should stop, I want you to look at your internal thought process, your mindfulness, look at the external pressures that you might coming into, and then philosophically, look in your heart of hearts, look inward, internal in one way, but I also want to look at, remember I talk about domains, um, and we talk about this in Warrior. We talk about our bodies, we talk about our business, we talk about our balance, that's our relationships, and we talk about being. And so those are all different aspects to consider. For me, being my relationship with God is huge. And knowing that I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing what is morally right, what I'm called to do, and serve others. There's a lot of things we can do that aren't necessarily wrong legally, right? But it's wrong, meaning it isn't where we need to be. We're not in the right seat. We're not going where God's calling us to go, where He's kind of knocking on our heart, right? Saying, hey, go and do. This is where I need you to be. This is where I need you to serve. This is what I need you to start doing. Leave this behind. That was good. It helped you, it got you to a certain place, but this is where you need to start. So I leave with you this thought today. Where do you need to start anew? And what do you need to stop doing? What does that look like for you? Let's get clarity and give you certainty in where you need to go. And if you're not clear on that, let's talk. I want to help. I'll share my clarity and my certainty with you to help you along your journey, get you unstuck, get you moving in the direction of where you really need to go and be where you need to serve your family, your friends, your coworkers, your clients, and be that most intelligent human leader. I'm rooting for you. I'm so grateful that you spend the time with me each week here at the Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast. And again, I welcome your feedback and look forward to a long journey. You guys heard my journey of starting Steward Your Business, from going from this internal and external challenges and listening to God and taking that moment. And this is going to continue on. And I'll continue to share with you other additional stories and adventures along the way. And appreciate you guys joining me. Until then, have an amazing day, and we'll talk to you all soon. Take care.